Ladies and gentlemen, I promise you an interesting video. Let's talk about why the governor of California tried to burn his own state. But let's start with Comey, the trial of Comey, which might fall through. There is no doubt that Comey, the former FBI chief, lied to Congress or that he forged documents to slander Trump. No one doubts that. Right? Everything is documented, everything is on video, everything is confirmed by witnesses. But on the way to court, miracles started to happen. Prosecutor Eric Seibert, so this is in Virginia, he ended up filing a lawsuit for, as he explained, lack of evidence. In my, completely unprofessional, of course, opinion, it's enough. But I am, as they say, not a judge, not a legal expert, not a legal consultant. Naturally, I don't understand anything about it, but it seemed to me that a lot of things were lied to Congress there. Besides, he was leaking information to magazines, newspapers there, the New York Times, and so on. At the same time, he swore, raised his right hand, and said that he had never done anything like that in his life. He claimed he didn't know anyone in his department was doing it. That same day, while he was swearing, he was actually directing his friend who leaked it. Okay, so here it is. I think that this very Eric Seibert got scared of something. Thank you. Attorney General Pam Bandy, at Trump's suggestion, appointed a lawyer who worked for Trump to replace him, and the case went into production. An expanded panel of jurors was assembled, which we call a grand jury. The evidence convinced them that a crime had been committed. There it is. And suddenly the judge announces that the panel, which is actually a grand jury, was improperly instructed and returns the case to the prosecutor. Even I was taken aback by that. So, does that mean Lindsay Callaghan is that former Trump lawyer? And is Pam Bundy the one who was supposed to make sure the case was proceeding properly? They don't have the materials, they really don't know how. Or maybe they don't know how to gather them. Maybe they don't know how to present them. But as far as I know, Pam Bundy is a well-known prosecutor, so to speak, who worked well in Florida and handled many cases. Maybe we were lied to about Comey doing something, but in reality, he didn't do anything. Maybe he's as clean as a newborn baby, but I heard with my own ears he lied. Well, let's figure it out. Here, I suggest you take a look at Cale Becker's review. This is Explaining America. There's a website like that where they explain all sorts of things that people don't always understand well. Well then, let's listen for a minute.
Welcome back to Explain America. I'm your host, Kyle Becker. Former FBI Director James Comey. Will he escape justice? That's the burning question on the minds of many Americans. Because he clearly interfered in the election, he lied to Congress, he obstructed justice, he was involved in illegal leaks, and he must be held accountable for that. And that could even mean prison for the former FBI director. Well, the judges overseeing his case are interfering left and right because they don't like the United States attorney that Trump chose to lead the case. That's because none of the other deep state figures had the guts to bring a case against former FBI Director Comey, even though he was obviously guilty. This is clear from the track record and the evidence. The grand jury thought so too, and now the judge, he is required, is obligating to hand over the grand jury documents.
Think that the judge or the judges didn't like it. Lindsay doesn't like it because of this. They don't risk their reputation, but when do they put their career on the line? When they're scared, it's more than just their reputation at stake. Heaven forbid anyone finds out. Forget it. I'll do anything just so they don't find out about it. Right? What exactly? Of course I don't know. Honestly, that's true, I don't know. But somehow, after the prosecutor did that, and the judge did that, I got the feeling that things aren't so simple there. Well, there's something that this judge or these judges are afraid of, something that maybe the former director, that is the FBI, has in their hands.
He just embarrassed himself because the Justice Department responded to the order regarding the grand jury documents and instructions for it. And well, it's really embarrassing for the defense. The judge
said that the prosecutor didn't tell everything. So the panel, this expanded, so to speak, grand jury, was not given the final indictment for approval, and basically the case should be dismissed. And to dismiss by dismissing the case. Well, it's incredibly difficult to reopen it.
So, the United States attorney handling the James Comey case, Lindsay Halligan, was chosen by Trump in September for the position of chief prosecutor at the United States Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Virginia. And she rejected the criticism in Wednesday evening's court filings, telling the federal judge, quote, "The proposed indictment was presented to the grand jury. They discussed and determined that there was sufficient cause to believe that the defendant committed the crime charged in the 2 counts. She also added that there were statements claiming that the magistrate misrepresented her comments before the grand jury and that his opinion on the case contested by Comey should be overturned."
The judge rigged the prosecutor's statement. How is that? So he isn't neutral. That means he's playing on Comey's team.
Well, that's extremely awkward because if the defense did that, it would be a real problem for that judge. And well, maybe in the end he did the right thing by choosing Halligan and listening to her explanation about those grand jury instructions. Let me remind you, for those who don't know, the Department of Justice's indictment on 2 counts was approved by a federal grand jury in Northern Virginia at the end of September. And this is based on allegations that Comey misled the Senate during testimony in late September 2020 when he reiterated his May 2017 denial that he had never authorized leaks to the media about the Trump-Russia investigation or matters related to Clinton. When the Department of Justice states that he actually authorized his friend, confidant, and special government representative Dan Richman to leak information to the media about the FBI's investigation into Hillary Clinton. The prosecution also claimed that Comey obstructed Congress by lying to the Senate. So, Halligan confirmed to the federal court on Wednesday that after the grand jury on September 25 dismissed one of the 3 charges against Comey, the indictment was revised that day to include only the 2 proven charges, excluding the dismissed one. And when she presented the revised indictment to the foreman and another juror, instead of presenting it again to the full jury before handing it over to the magistrate judge. So, both versions of the indictment were presented to the magistrate. The original one with the dismissed count included, and the revised one where the dismissed count was omitted. The jury foreman confirmed the grand jury approved only 2 counts. Comey's lawyer, Michael Dribbin, a former member of special counsel Robert Mueller's Trump-Russia investigation, told the court Wednesday that Halligan's revelation invalidated the indictment against his client. And that's clearly not true. So, Judge Michael Namanoff, the presiding judge who was nominated by Joe Biden and confirmed by the Senate in 2021, ordered the Department of Justice to provide answers in this case. That's what I'm telling you about right now. So the successful conviction was on 2 counts. False statements within the jurisdiction of the legislative authority of the United States and obstruction of Congress. If
something is unclear, the prosecutor asked the jury to consider 3 charges. They confirmed 2, but said there was not enough information on the 3rd. The prosecutor rewrote the conclusion the same day and crossed it out. This 3rd charge, she presented this version, meaning the first version. She removed one of the charges for the small group, as she said, out of 4 people, so that they would approve this text. After that, Judge Gallocrat handed both versions over, explaining that out of the 3 charges, the jury approved 2. By the way, during the process, so to speak, if the case develops and there is new information, a 3rd charge, a 4th, or even a 45th can be added, so to speak. When you start digging into it, it starts to grow like a snowball, so to speak. The main thing is to start the process. But the final version was approved by 4 jury members. They're not all 12. Let's listen.
So the question before us is James Comey. And is he guilty of those 2 charges listed in this indictment? It doesn't matter at all what Lindsay Halligan had for breakfast, or what she does in her free time, or anything else. Is James Comey guilty of these charges? Well, the grand jury found sufficient grounds for that. So that judge better not pull any tricks and let James Comey go against the law. Because if he does, he's aiding and abetting a criminal act, and that's unacceptable and could potentially be illegal. Judges have no right to ignore the law, and if James Comey is guilty, this should not be dismissed. And this is not selective or punitive prosecution. By the way, James Comey, these charges, these criminal charges.
The problem is that the law says there must be at least 12 jurors. Usually there are between 16 and 24. That's in this extended, so to speak, jury, the grand jury, right? And the final version must be approved by 12 people, but only 4 approved it. This could stop the case altogether and take Comey out of the line of fire. As prosecutors, I don't even know, they missed some silly word, right? I mean, these are some real basics. You don't need to check these things. You just can't do that. Nobody does. They gather all of us together and report all of this to them. Why, in such an important matter, was no one overseeing the investigation? Why was no one monitoring, let's say, the handling of certain technical details? Yes, for purely technical reasons. A matter of such great importance, which was supposed to pave the way for many other similar cases, cannot simply fall through. Let's move from this hero of our time to another one, to the governor, to California. Accept new involvement evidence. Well, there's the state leadership in the burning of Los Angeles, our governor Gavin Newsom. Kind of. Continuation, a training company, a company that is engaged in training. Training should follow. Who shows off? Handsome guy shows off, yeah, loves television, the camera, getting on stage, talking. So, mature girls and women of post-Balzac age, they idolize him, kind of a sugar boy, sickly sweet and fake. But I guess maybe some groups of people like him, or maybe his relatives have enough money to, make them think they like him. And that's why at one time he made his way into the spotlight. San Francisco, he completely ruined the city. Then he became the lieutenant governor of California, and now he's the governor of the state of California. At the same time, everyone knows that he's a thief, a liar, a fraud. But as they say, that's not the only reason we love him. And this isn't really hidden. He ruined the construction, or rather, he stole $30 billion that were allocated for building the high-speed train from Los Angeles to San Francisco. He wasted $1 billion on buying COVID masks at $5 each, when by that time there was no need to transport them anywhere. They were selling them here at $5 for 20 pieces, but he bought $1 billion wholesale at $5 each. In stores and pharmacies, they were easy to find for, well, about 1/10 of that price. He ruined all the initiatives and plans. He keeps raising taxes all the time. Hundreds of thousands of businesses have fled California, and a huge number of homeless people wander the cities and towns. And that's why he is the Democratic Party's hope for the 2028 elections. Well, I mean, just for that alone, you could respect him, but he should absolutely not be allowed anywhere near power. And now details are starting to emerge about all sorts of fires.
Today, we have new exclusive details about the investigation into the deadly Palisades fire in California. News Nation correspondent Rich McHugh obtained documents that may show the state is essentially solely responsible for this fire and possibly for the deaths of 12 people. Last week, our investigation revealed that a state representative was at the fire site where embers from an unextinguished fire were smoldering deep underground. Well, it eventually turned into the Palisades fire, and according to our information, the state representative was on site, directing the firefighters and telling them where they could and couldn't go. Tonight, we not only received confirmation of the state representative's presence, but now we know exactly when they arrived and why.
The fire started, the firefighters arrived, and they were joined by a representative from Newsom's administration. He began directing the firefighters, ordering what to put out and what not to put out.
Hi, Elizabeth. That's shocking. And it comes down to two very important questions. First, did negligent management lead to the fire in Palisades, and did they lie about all of this in court? And the new documents we received indicate that's exactly what happened. It all started early in the morning on January 1st, when the alleged arsonist started the Lockman fire. We know that the underground coal caught fire again 6 days later, causing a second, more destructive fire. Palisades, in response to a lawsuit from more than 3,000 residents of Palisades, claiming that the state failed to control the sparks from that first fire, Governor Newsom's office told News Nation that the state did not start this fire. An arsonist started the fire and the state wasn't responsible for putting it out or controlling it. Now, in new court documents, the state goes further and states the victims of Palisades cannot claim that the state knew about the Lockman fire because it was never notified. State records show a call at 002701, but the rest of the incident report was redacted, completely hidden, essentially, including their response to that call. But the Los Angeles Fire Department record reveals all the details to us. That is,
the representatives of the state of California lied in court, and when they were asked for documents, they sent a paper where everything was blacked out.
And the Los Angeles Fire Department records show that not only did the Los Angeles Fire Department notify the state right after midnight, but the state also sent a park representative at 146 Anti-Meridium on January 1st. And this representative of the state park arrived at the scene at 4 Anti-Meridium on January 1st, so...
That means the state was notified right after midnight. It took an hour and 40 minutes to give the order that a representative should be sent, and the representative arrived at 4 a.m. to give the order. So he traveled for 2 hours and 20 minutes through an empty city, a route that should have taken no more than 20 minutes. And then completely fantastic and absurd actions began.
Los Angeles is setting the state on fire. All right. Now, when the Los Angeles Fire Department's report on the incident shows what the state won't show, that the Los Angeles Fire Department contacted the state after midnight on January 1st, and a state park representative arrived at the scene by 4 a.m.
If the state has no responsibility for this land, why are they sending a state park representative? Because the state is playing hide and seek. They're not being transparent with the public. Why did you send a state park representative? Tell us what that park representative did, and that the next day, on January 2nd, you sent another representative who directed the firefighters and prohibited bulldozer work.
Do you understand anything? A state representative, actually it looks like 2 of them came to the fire, but in the state documents that information was blacked out. They wanted to hide that someone, well, who, we don't know. Someone came there. The same person came twice, once, and then a different person. They came to the scene of the fire, yes, and they forbade it. To finish putting it out.
Does this kind of logic make sense to you? We asked all these specific questions, Elizabeth, to Governor Newsom's office and California state parks, and they refused to answer them.
Clarification. Who came? Why are his or their tracks hidden? Why him? She was in charge of the firefighters. That's also mysterious, right? But if the firefighters listened to her, it means the person came officially, showed some kind of credentials, and forbade them from finishing putting out the fire. And they left while the fire was still active. Firefighters would never leave on their own. There had to be an order. 12 people died, to be clear. Besides the fact that the city was almost burned down, well, call it a district, a city within greater Los Angeles, another 12 people died. And here is a video of a member of the California Assembly, a Republican, who has a lot of questions, but the governor doesn't answer them.
And a major scandal is breaking out, connected to the loss of $3 billion of taxpayers' money in a questionable investment made by the state pension fund. On the orders of Newsom and California Democratic politicians, they gave your tax money to a Green New Deal investment fund and lost it all. $3 billion in losses and no answers to questions. That's why today I sent a letter to Trump's Department of Justice demanding a criminal investigation.
They took $3 billion, our money, not theirs. Where did it come from? So they handed it over to their buddies. Those guys went bankrupt and the $3 billion disappeared. And nobody is held responsible for anything. I find out that no one is responsible for the gas. No one is responsible. Someone is responsible. And yes, but it's not your money to risk.
People should be held accountable for breaches of fiduciary duties. If it happened to Bernie Madoff, then it should happen to Gavin Newsom and his corrupt clique in Sacramento, who are lining the pockets of green agenda managers at your expense. And of course, follow the money. These are the same investment managers who donate to Newsom's companies and California Democrats.
Honestly, it's completely unexpected that the Democrats gave $3 billion of our money to the very people who gave them, the Democrats, money for their campaigns. So they gave to Newsom and the Democrats and paid them back with our money. This is called political democracy. I'm saying this for the fans of democracy, of course.
Follow the money, demand an investigation. You lost $3 billion, and we need to find out who did it, why, and how to punish them. And here,
I'm not sure here because Republican politicians and Democratic politicians only differ in how much they steal from us. Democrats steal more and Republicans seem to steal less, but maybe more often. In any case, between two evils. As long as there's no alternative, I choose those who steal more modestly, meaning the Republicans. I have my own theory. Why did the Democrats need to burn it? The city of Palisades? It's located on the ocean shore. The thing is, land along the ocean is incredibly expensive. Incredibly expensive. There's almost none of it left. If you burn down the city and then don't give building permits for years, which is what's happening, then people driven mad will start selling those plots. And the people who will buy them up are usually developers. But why? No building permit. Why buy the land? I might not get anything for 10 years. So the people who will go and buy are those who are sure that as soon as everything that needs to be bought is bought, they'll get a building permit. Subtitles. Subtitles by Dima Torzak. They buy it, wait there for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, however long it takes. And after they've, as they say, bought it for 10 cents. What cost $1? Yesterday may soon cost $1, $2.03, or even $5. And in 2 or 3 years, when construction begins, the developers and officials will make 2,000 or 3,000% profit on the pennies they invested. That's why there was no water in the taps, but this time it wasn't because of the Jews. That's why they ordered not to put out the mysterious fire. That's it. But that's just my theory, not backed up by anything. It's just that I'm, a nihilist. As soon as I see something the government does I don't suspect, I know. vileness. Well, either stupidity or vileness. In this case, it doesn't seem like stupidity, it seems like vileness. Until next time.